We have finally come to the end of Mike Dell, the former chief chief inspector even, of the Special Demonstration Squad from 2001 to 2005. The further questions for him, the Rule 10s as they're called, the ones that have come from the rest of the legal teams here at the inquiry, have been asked of him. He's given some fairly unsatisfactory answers. I was quite disappointed to hear John Mitting thank him very thoroughly for his thorough, detailed and forceful answers. I mean, yeah, he certainly gave plenty of emotion into some of the things that he was being asked. There was one piece of cross-examination from Oliver Saunders, which is always unpleasant to experience. I'm joined, as I often am, by Emily Apple and Donald Driscoll. Pick the bones out of that one. What did you make of what we had? What Dell had to say? There was a lot of topics covered, but perhaps we should start with his insistence that he only told the undercover officers once, as part of a short, sharp shock, not to have sex with activists, and then they didn't need reminding ever again.
Yeah, but what about all the other ones that came in afterwards and continued to do that?
Well, he
was determined to stick to his script, even when, like we see with so many of the managers, when the script is clearly garbage, when it has been deboned quite thoroughly, use that unfortunate expression. He's flopping around, but he's going to plod on and he's going to use 1,000 words to say, no, I didn't know. No, of course it wasn't necessary. But I'm a decent, upstanding copper.
Yeah. Emily, what do you need?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like out of words for him. I'm so sick of it, hearing from him. But this idea that he had this one attempt to tell them that they shouldn't be having sex and that there was no point saying it. I mean, it just made no sense. It was just so much garbage. And the fact that his management style seemed to be, well, I gave them a short, sharp shock, and then after that, they should have listened to me, and clearly none of them did. But I'm just going to keep saying that because I thought that was going to be effective. I mean, I'm struggling because it made no sense.
And he's write it down.
Yeah. Well, quite the fact it wasn't written down.
It wasn't written down anywhere. It was just like, it's like so much of his stuff wasn't written down, and it's like, well, if it's not written down, then it probably didn't happen.
One of the questions which I was most interested in was one that related to a report that came from HN3 Jason Bishop about the injunction that was served on Smash Edo activists. In this report, he offers some advice. He says this injunction that Edo have sought against the activists isn't going to work. They're attempting to stop them from protesting outside, but the reality of the situation is it will cause a much bigger reaction. I mean, this is something which I think as activists we all know, we're quite familiar with the situation. But within it, he says, this is something that we should tailor our advice to the likes of Reed and Spearhead, that when they're coming along and asking us for advice on injunctions, we should advise them not to do it. This is put to Mike Dell, that like obviously your officer thinks that there's a direct line of communication with the arms companies. And he goes, oh, no, he wouldn't understand. He was too young. It was too young to understand how it worked.
And there's also bollocks, if I can use this phrase. It's like, at that time, National Extremism Technical Coordination Unit, part of what became MPYU, existed to precisely do that. And now I was involved in those injunctions. I remember the police turning up with whole bundles of files and Stephen Pearl giving loads of statements about how evil protesters were. Are you telling me that no, we didn't share anything with the police. We just gathered all this information, as he said several times. It's all about gathering information to do nothing with it.
Yeah, it was complete bollocks, and just the fact that that he seemed to blame HN3's youth. This is someone who was like 30 at the time, or at least probably older than that.
I'm afraid.
And I think actually I've only really just thought this. The sort of interesting thing is that they were the conversations that we'd have been having about the effectiveness of injunctions and how, you know, like you can use repression to mobilize, and that really happened with the Smash Eat Day campaign. It really did backfire on them, the repression that they tried to do. But the idea that he'd just made this up out of nowhere, that there was no collusion between the arms companies and special branch, is just so ridiculous that, I mean, it just all becomes so frustrating because we know these things happened. There's so much in the reports that say these things happened. And, you know, as I was saying at lunchtime, you know, we've had him saying that BAE Systems were offering them a lot of money to infiltrate anti-arms campaigns. So that link's got to come somewhere. What, that conduit disappears?
Yeah, well, like, how did that suddenly appear? Oh, so it's just somebody rocked up and, hey, we're here, you got some on the covers. Do you, you know, fancy, you know, doing some work for us as well? Oh, so wait a second, we're employing those of ex-special branch officers as our head of security.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, who's that Stephen Beals? You're going to go head into the private security firm when we say after. It's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like,
firms,
yeah, having that contact in the first place is just, and knowing that they had undercovers that they might be able to put in.
The problem with the question wasn't so there might not have been a formal route like a desk, and I think, you know, the word desk was some things, where we have certainly plenty of informal routes, particularly down the Masonic Lodge. But I really got the feeling from him that, you know, he had a real moral sense of who he was, you know, a very conservative Christian way, and he was going to defend that at the cost of everything else. Like, he doesn't mind people getting shot as long as they're people of color, you know, or preferably not Christian. You know, it was like, oh, we need to know the right person to shot, i.e., the brown person.
Yeah, this section started off with we saw his response to the Crane report, which he said was like he didn't want to repeat because he was obviously in a mood at the time, basically. And when we did see it, and yes, indeed, he was, you know, full of, like, it was shoddy and dishonest. We got the impression that he was very unhappy about the Crane report, and he said that if they wanted to shut down the unit, they should have got him to do it. He'd have done it within a year. But because basically he suggests that Janet Williams, who we'll be hearing from in a few weeks, had a personal dislike to him. That she didn't want him to do it. The unit limped on for 2 years. They got someone else to do it.
And that was a classic moment where he describes his first meeting. He shook his hand, said, "We've met," and then walked off. And he was like, "What? You? Why would that happen?" It's like, people don't do that without reason. You know, there's a subtext there.
And I think as well, you know, like all these kind of like denials of misogyny, the two women that he's talked about, HN77 and then Janet Williams, the misogyny is just leaking out of every word. It's in every silence. His contempt for any strong women or like women having control over these units. And he was asked about that directly, and he like, oh no. But it was so clear that he did that there was an issue with this woman coming in and having these opinions about the unit. And you know, you could almost hear him thinking, oh, that silly little woman trying to tell us men how to run this unit.
Yeah, and you know, going back to something you said the other day, it started with evidence about, you know, you really want the women in the unit. I was a question about that. He went, because they're more effectively, he said, they do what they're told and they're more pliant. Men are too full of opinions. He just wanted some women who would, you know, and it's just like, listen to yourself. And you, HN77 left, you know, think, you know, so, oh, actually, I think there's sexism going on here. Well, you know, it's hard to know because she hasn't given evidence, but she's got a much stronger case now, having heard him.
Yeah. Just one of the other things I thought was interesting was he's spoken a few times about Bob Lambert, and he's given the impression that somebody he's not that much of a fan of, but that he worked with him in the past, and we get the impression perhaps at one time they did have a good working relationship, but that has changed. He certainly blames him for the inquiry process, that you get the impression from something he said the other day. But what I thought was interesting was he was asked about the True Spies documentary, and he said that, you know, it was recorded that he had tried, as the head of the unit at the time, to have some sort of redaction process with how the production company had made the documentary, but it turned out that had been completely unsuccessful, apart from issues around Operation Sparkler and Bob Lambert. Now, when Operation Sparkler was mentioned to him, he said, "Oh, I think I've heard the name." Is there more to this? Was he actually acting on behalf of Bob Lambert back in 2002, and they fell out since then?
And also that begs the question: why was True Spies asking awkward questions around Operation Sparkler, which is considered the peak moment of SDS success? We now know that, the whole thing was a false flag operation. Well, not quite false flag, but Lambert was in there in the middle of it. So what were they worried about? Is this? I don't know if you remember Gunn giving evidence last year, particularly really also excited about True Spies. He said only reason they agreed to cooperate was to stop things coming out. And now we're seeing, well, what they're talking about stopping coming out is Operation Sparkler.
Yeah, and it's a protection of Bob. Good old Bob, everybody's friend, Bob.
The whole reason, well, one of the main reasons why you're saying.
Yeah. There was one thing that annoyed me. The thing I was waiting for was coming back to the stuff about HN60, Dave Evans. That didn't get touched on, which was frustrating.
It did. It's the legal pressure privilege in the London Animal Action.
Oh, okay, it was just that. That was all we were getting.
Well, there was a lot more to it. So I know what's under that because I was involved in it. I was quite annoyed. It was just quickly brushed over with
very
really
quickly
egregious legal privilege. Among the as bad as not worse than we've seen, and it's just like, but the question put to it was like, okay, he had said about these, we just quarantined it all. It didn't go anywhere. It came in. I was pointing out, well, actually, it was going everywhere. You were distributing it. The report says it was going to MPYU and all the heads of special branch around the country. That's not quarantining. And unfortunately, they just brushed over. It's like, here was your first direct interference on the civil injunction cases. And it's like, oh, well.
Yeah, no, you just said it was a mistake, and that was it.
Yeah, I was going to say, and so many of those things, it was just kind of like, oh, that shouldn't have happened. Well, how many things do you get that just shouldn't have happened before you just have total disbelief? Like, they have two options. Like, the option that we know that they are all lying and were abusing LLP. Oh, no, sorry. I'm so cynical. Or, but the other alternative is they are just so incompetent that they don't know where they're disseminating. They're collecting all this data and they don't know where they're disseminating it or what they're doing to it. But I don't believe that version. But
and I think there's a danger of tarnishing all the managers who won't brush. It's like either one or the other. Edmondson had no idea what was going on. Lambert knew everything. He's trying to say that the book stopped at him, but really it's 53 was my DI. He'll know everything. It's this but they have constantly been caught up in that trap between the incompetency or lying argument,
or saying something bad about Special Branch, which they absolutely refuse to do, and so many of them, certainly with the managers, they appear to be happier to either come across as lying or incompetent than to actually criticize any of the workings, not only of the SDS, but Special Branch as a whole. They are so loyal to Special Branch.
And it's interesting, going back to Jan Williams. Jan Williams was outside Special Branch, so it's okay to hate her. And lots of the evidence of all the managers there, they still have that rank structure that even he was talking about. It's like, we don't criticize the superiors even now, after years after retired. They maintain that mentality.
He at one point said, it definitely I can't remember what it was in relation to, but it definitely wasn't misogyny. It was incompetence on my part. It was me being incompetent. Anything but admit to any misogyny. Tomorrow we'll be hearing from Stephen Beals, an officer, one of the detective sergeants who, according to Mike Dell, was an exemplary officer who has a real detail and will impress us, apparently. So something to look forward to. Yeah, quite.
But he's got lots of serious questions. He's got being cover officer for Carnegie, especially on the holidays. There's his time in working for private security straight after. he's also the same period, seen a lot of the same mess. It'd be very interesting to contrast.
Apparently, he should be finished by 4 o'clock tomorrow. After that, there'll be a private session where Helen Steele will be giving evidence. I won't be able to go into there. There won't be any reporting of it. So just Stephen Beales in terms of the broadcast tomorrow. It'll be starting at the usual time. So expect the broadcast from 10:15. Is there anything else either you'd like to add? I think maybe we've had enough of Mike Dell now. There's probably plenty of other things that we could say about him if you wanted to. He's a very angry man. Yeah, he is a very angry man. Well, fuck you, Mike. We're sick of you. I'm glad you're done. I get the impression he's been following the coverage of it because of a few of the little things that he said. So if you're watching this, Mike, none of us like you and never will.
I don't believe you did that.
Yes. Oh, somebody has just given me a donation. Hooray for that. If anybody else wants to support this work that I'm doing, you can give me a donation on Ko-fi. The link is on the screen. You're more than welcome to do so. That's the first time one's ever actually happened during a stream. That's quite exciting. Thanks for that. That's cheers. Yeah, and anything else to add, or should we all go home?
Can we go home?
Yes. Dr. Congo is playing England. I hope Dr. Congo wins. Bye for now. See you in the morning.